Hey everybody. It's currently like 11 o'clock at night. I got off work and my wife had a just absolutely outrageous time with the kids. And honestly, it's the first moment I've had to kind of give an update on what's going on with the rifle build. And really not a lot. Pretty much still sitting here with the action broken down into its individual components, and yeah, really haven't done a heck of a lot as far as any actual physical work to it. That doesn't mean I've been completely complacent here, though. Mainly, I've actually done some pretty hardcore work in the research department. And like I said before, whenever it comes down to building something like this, you kind of got to go with what decisions you're going to make as to the end goal. And the problem with building a rifle like this is that you have to have a complete picture of the final product before you even remotely start building it. So, for example, I can't just decide, okay, step one, barrel. Let's get a barrel put on here and go from there. You have to know how that barrel is going to interact with the action. You got to know how that barrel is going to be chambered with the bullets you're going to use, and basically go up from there. So you have to have a really good end goal picture of how you're going to be using the rifle at the end of all this. Now, as much as I would love to say, oh, this thing will be good out to 2 miles and it'll hit a, paint can lid at that range and I can do it consistently every time, that's just not the case. This isn't about being ultimately accurate over insane distances. Am I saying that won't happen? No, I'm not. This is a very good action. Is it the best? No, it's not. Can I make it better than it is? Yes, I can, and I'm going to. But the inherent accuracy that it's going to have is finite with the resources that I'm going to personally put into it. Is it going to be better than my 308? Yeah. It's more power, it's going to have more tailor-made parts on it, and it's going to be just genuinely better engineered than my 308 is. The 308 is basically, it's semi-auto. I'm not saying that you can't make a semi-auto as accurate as a bolt gun. I'm just saying I personally wasn't going to go and try that. 308 is good out to 500 yards. The end goal with this is to be variable target distances between 300 to 1,000 yards. Now, what I mean by variable target distances is that you're going to have not unknown, but no set ranges. Basically, in an ideal situation with this rifle, you would have yourself out there with a spotter who might have a rangefinder, and you can range targets out to a set distance of, first target's 300, second target's 400, third target's, 500 yards, whatever. Anywhere out to 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 even. Now, as I've stated before, I don't really have anywhere I can shoot that far, so getting those final distances in is kind of just a bonus. So, what I meant when I said I have decisions to make, well, it's a classic scenario of you can't have it all. So, for example, the ranges I want to shoot with this thing, maximally optimal bullet for that would be something along the lines of like a 338 Lapua, a 408 Cheyenne Tactical, some crazy caliber like that. Now, you can't really put a 408 Chi-Tac through this receiver. It would just blow it up, pretty much. It would destroy it. And honestly, there's certain questions about a 338 Lapua. I've heard that it can be done. I've heard that it shouldn't be done. I've heard that it's unsafe. I've heard that it's not a good idea. And honestly, I'm not really looking to test the absolute mechanical boundaries of this action. While it wasn't expensive, as far as action standards go, it was fairly cheap. You know, but as far as it goes, I don't feel any need to push the boundaries and absolutely destroy this thing. Now on that same front, due to the dimensions of the action, I do have a lot of options if I'm just going off the dimensions of the action. Now, some of those are mainly due to the diameter of the bolt face. This bolt face ranges up to, I think it's 0.540 inches across. Basically, it's a little over a ½ inch diameter bolt face. That opens up so many options, it's ridiculous. I have anything from the original caliber 7mm Remington Magnum. I've got several Weatherby casings, like a 300 Weatherby Magnum, 300 Winchester Magnum, 7mm Rim Mag, obviously. Even up to some of the ultra calibers, like the 300 Remington Ultra Mag, the 338 Remington Ultra Mag, the 338 Edge. You know, any of these are options I can go for. But there are other limiting factors beyond the straight up, beyond the bolt face and the straight up length of the action. One of the limiting factors is this magazine. Now, the action can support anything that I want to throw in there. If you can slide a bullet through this slot and into the barrel, you can shoot it. But, and I mean obviously if it lines up the bolt face. But this action has what's called a blind magazine. It's a single stack. Basically I think it holds 3 rounds maximum. And it inserts into the bottom of the action like that. Now there are things you can do, like I can cut the ends off of here and re-weld it, or I can actually cut the ends off and hard mount the sides of this magazine down into the stock that I buy to replace the original wooden stock that I'm never ever going to use. But it all kind of comes down to how much work you want to do. You can also, if you're feeling froggy, not even use a magazine. You can use this as a single fed or single shell rifle. But honestly, I don't like the idea of having equipment I'm not going to use. On top of that, in spite of the fact that you can get stocks with or without a magazine well cut into them, I really like the idea of having a magazine. I like the idea of being able to have more than one shot and doing a follow-up shot afterwards. So whether it's on target or whatever. I also don't like the idea of carrying either loose or packed shells somewhere on me. Your options for carrying around rifle shells are numerous, I'm not going to lie. I mean, they make the little bandoliers that attach onto a belt, or you can even have shell holders on a vest. You can carry a box of ammo in a backpack, whatever you want. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I personally don't like most of them. Like, for example, any shell holder that's been on a pocket with just little loops. I've had shells fall out of those before. I've had bandoliers break. Not that I use a lot of bandoliers. I'm not an 1800s bandit. But, yeah, I just don't like having to carry around loose shells on me. If I'm going to carry shells, I prefer them to be actually in my rifle and ready to use. I don't like the idea of scrabbling for my next round, even if I'm only target shooting. Which, honestly, is probably about 99 to maybe even 100% of all this rifle is going to be used for. I just don't like having loose shells. Now, I can carry a box with me, and I probably will. But, like I said, I like the idea of being able to load up 3 rounds and just have 3 rounds ready to go. Would I prefer more? Yeah, that's kind of the reason I got 20, 25 round mags for my 308. That's why I got 30 round mags for my AR-15 and 300 Blackout. You know, the more rounds the better. And it's not so much the idea of using all those rounds on one target as fast as possible, like a lot of people seem to think that an AR-15 is good for, or something like that. But what I like about it is I can load one thing and carry it with me, and I'm good all day. 30 rounds of long range is a good practice session for me. You know, doing 3 rounds at a time with this rifle, that's going to be a pretty good practice session. You shoot 3, you go down, check your target, come back, load up 3 more, take some more shots. So, that's another limiting factor though, is this magazine is going to stay attached to this action. Moderately, anyway. It is a little broken. I might actually end up replacing this actual magazine, but either way. Now, that's a limiting factor, as I've said, because I could modify this, or maybe even buy a different one for a different rifle. I don't know. But at the end of the day, modifying this means modifying this, which means modifying the stock. And really, I just don't feel the need to do all that. Now, on top of all that, there are monetary considerations to be made. The more mods you do to this, the more expensive it gets, even if you're doing it all yourself. Like cutting this out, re-welding it, that takes up some of my welding gas and all that stuff. And that's just something I don't even really want to start. And on top of that, these aren't the easiest thing to modify. This is the Magwell. It's just easier not to get started on that in the first place. On top of that, as I said, I want to have follow-up rounds. So just doing this as a single shot doesn't really appeal to me. So as far as other monetary considerations go, you also got to think about, you know, your actual bullets, brass, bullets, powder, primers, time on the press. You know, how much time am I really willing to spend building custom rounds for a rifle? Honestly, I'm willing to spend a lot of time. Do I have a lot of time to actually do ladder testing and all that kind of stuff? No, not really. Am I going to do it for this? Yeah, but, you know, when it comes to brass, something that's slightly more exotic, like a Remington Ultra Mag, you know, whether it be the 300, 338, whichever, you know, it's just tricky to track that kind of stuff down. Now, the 300 Remington Ultra Mag is slightly more popular than the 308 or the 338 Remington Ultra Mag, and you can actually take the brass from a 300, bell it out to a 338, and use that, and it's a little bit more common. But here's the kicker to all this: 25 shell casings for 338 Remington Ultra Mag can run anywhere from $50 to $60. That is $2 for those who are bad at math. $2 to, I don't know, $2.50, somewhere around there, for each individual brass cartridge. That's not to mention the insane amounts of powder that it takes to run these. As I said before, 1 grain of powder is 1/7,000th of a pound. Something like a 223, you're going to use 26 grains of powder. That's 26 7,000ths of a pound. Something like a 308, you're going to use somewhere around 40 to 50 grains of powder, depending on what kind of powder you're using. You know, it eats a little bit more, but it's not too bad. Something like a little 45 or even 9mm, you use an 1820. You know, with something along the lines of 338, well, shoot, I have the reload manual. What are my reload manuals right here? Let's find out. 338 Remington Ultra Mag. Alright, here we go. So if I was going to run this, and by the way, this is sort of a cookbook for building your own bullets, in case you're interested. So if I were to run, let's say, a 250 grain bullet, which is a pretty large and heavy projectile, it's good at covering long distances. Alright, remember how I said the 223 uses 26 grains of powder? This can use up to 94 grains of powder. So that's nearly 4 times the amount of powder that a 223 uses. You're talking just literally emptying your hopper incrementally every single time you drop powder on one of these. So, you know, I mean, 1 pound of powder, that's like a little over 70 bullets, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. I mean, you're talking, ridiculous amounts of powder, ridiculous amounts of recoil, and honestly, like I said, brass, on top of being expensive, is kind of hard to come by. So, as much as I like the idea of having an Ultra Mag, because, I mean, who doesn't love saying 338 Remington Ultra Mag? That's just an awesome, I mean, it sounds badass, and honestly, it is badass. Or 338 Edge, which was 338 Edge, interestingly, or not interestingly if you're not, but is developed by a guy named Sean Carlock. And one of the first rifles I ever built, I actually emailed him in a vague hope of just being like, hey, can you give me some advice on this? Like, what's a good caliber to go for right off the bat? And he actually answered me. Very, very nice email. I actually still have it saved on my computer. Just saying, hey, thanks for getting into long-range shooting. Here's what I would advise. And he wrote me out a real good list of things to do. And I still appreciate that to this day, and actually still listen to a lot of what he says, because he invented the 338 Edge cartridge. If you find that interesting or not. So, either way, much as I like the idea of having a Remington Ultra Mag, I like stuff that's more popular. That sounds kind of douchey to say, but honestly, I'm not in this to make everything hard on myself. I mean, I build rifles that are fairly popular and common. Not so much because I think everybody else has it right, but honestly, you can take an AR-15 and turn it into anything. Literally anything. From a can shooter, and I mean that in both ways, in a gun that is used to shoot cans and a gun that shoots cans, to a crossbow. You can turn one of these things into a crossbow or a shotgun. I mean, it's ridiculous what you can turn an AR-15 into. From short range to long range. A pistol. You can turn one into a pistol. They're very, very easy guns to assemble. You're not building anything, you're just buying parts and throwing them together. It's actually fairly close to the same thing we're going to be doing with this. As much as I would like to be considered a builder or a fabricator, I really can't. I'm more of a designer than anything. In that I don't have a machine shop, much as I would love to. It's something I've always felt would be very amazing to try, but honestly, I can't make myself spend $5 grand on machinery thinking, well, it's time to learn. It's a little hard. So, I'm perfectly happy turning that kind of work over to other people, too, that have been doing it for many, many, many decades, preferably. But, yeah, that doesn't mean I can't pick parts out. So, when it comes down to it, as far as the decision-making process goes, given what I've come to and the dimensions of this, which the magazine, I believe, has an overall length of 3.48 inches. Wait a minute, 3.52 inches, whatever. So 3.52 inches is the maximum length that I can have a bullet be and still have it fit into this magazine. 3.52 inches. Now inside of this book is listed the actual dimensions of most any cartridge you could possibly build. So like, once you put the bullet in and the powder in and everything else, it tells me the overall length of, let's give for example a 7.5 by 55 Schmidt, that's hard to say, a 308 Winchester. It gives me a case overall length of 2.735 inches. Is the maximum case length with a 150 grain bullet. Obviously that's much shorter than the magazine. So if we go up to something crazy like the 338 Lapua Magnum, it has a maximum case overall length of 3.681 inches. So that's a couple tenths of an inch too long for this. So, since I don't want to modify this, that does narrow it down even more. Since I don't want crazy, hard to find, and extremely expensive brass, that narrows it down even more. So, when it comes down to, like I said, decision making, you can only go so far. Would I love to build this into a Remington Ultramag? Yes. Am I going to? No. No, I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but no, I'm not going to. What I am going to build this into is, again, fairly popular, fairly common. Why? It makes everything available, makes everything really easy to source. Also, not very expensive. I don't have to get custom high dollar brass for this. This is stuff you can order in bulk from the same place I buy all my other brass. So, what it narrows down to is a few common cartridges. 7mm Rem Mag, 300 Weatherby Magnum, 338 Remington, or 338 Winchester, or, well, 338 Winchester Magnum, or 300 Winchester Magnum. Now, logic and common sense dictate that I don't do a Weatherby. Their cartridges are pretty hard to find comparatively. They're pretty commercially available, but they're very commercially available through Weatherby. So I don't want to do that. 338 Winchester Magnum. It's a big bullet. It's fairly slow. It'll travel a long distance. It bucks the wind fairly good. But it doesn't have as good of aerodynamics as, let's say, the 7mm Rem Mag. 7mm Rem Mags have very good long range capabilities. They have a wide variety of bullets. They're a logical choice. But one option sticks out above all the others purely because, one, brass is common as dirt. Two, bullets are offered in such a wide variety that's absolutely ridiculous. You could literally tailor this thing to shoot squirrels or moose. And on top of that, I do have a lot of previous experience with it and was very happy with it when I owned it last. So, without further ado, the cartridge that I am actually going to turn this into at the end of all this will be a 300 Winchester Magnum. Now, depending on who watches this, there might be a couple people swearing at me right now. That's fine. You have every right. But that's the option I'm going with. Now, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I'm still not in a huge hurry on this. It's not a hard decision to make, honestly, with just what I got available and what's available out there. I mean, shoot, like I said, I got some previous experience with this. I literally have 300 Winchester Magnum brass laying around in my office right now. So, yeah, I mean, I even saved a little money there. On top of that, it's fairly easy to get a rifle chambered in that. It requires no modifications to the action as far as lengthening the mag or lengthening the well or any of that stuff. I can keep my same bolt head and everything, so it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, while I do love the 7mm Rem Mag, it's a neat cartridge, it's very good. It just doesn't have all the components available that the 300 Winchester Magnum has. Now, aerodynamically and everything else, it might be a superior bullet. I never really thought about it too much, but honestly, as a great shooter once said, you know, shoot what you have. And in this case, I have either a 7mm Rem Mag or a 300 Winchester Magnum. I'm making my choice based off of potential use. I might go hunting with this someday. I really doubt it, but I might. You never know. If I am going to hunt, I want to be able to hunt literally whatever I want. I can't think of a single animal in North America that this thing couldn't take down with 300 Winchester Magnum bullets. And, you know, with a 7mm, that's also true, but it still doesn't come in quite the variety. I can't fine-tune it as much as I would like. So, that's why I'm going with this. It's, not something I actually came to lightly. I literally spent probably 8 or 9 hours agonizing over it while I was at work. and probably should have been paying attention to other things, but, you know, I'm sure they would like me to. But this is what I think about most of the day. So, that's where we're at. You know, sorry this video took so long to make. It's kind of ridiculous to spend, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes talking about this, but, you know, it's all part of the process. And honestly, given the amount of time I spent agonizing over it, you know, it wasn't something I wanted to convey as being an easy decision. So, there we are. I'm tired. I'm going to head to bed. If you can't tell, I'm half asleep already. So, hopefully next time you see me, I'll either be working on this or one of my other background projects that I know I keep promising to bring up and never have. So, maybe you'll get lucky. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.